last time we checked, you were on the episode where Brendan Preisman was like, Maryland's not making the Final Four.
That was a bold take.
Mr. Preisman, come. Mr. Preisman, we need to have a talk here. My friend, your Maryland Terrapins are not only in the Final Four, but your Maryland Terrapins have dominated their bracket of the regional.
Have to let Matt close us off.
Yeah, I mean, not only a potential Big Ten tournament finals matchup, but even a national championship.
Maryland?
Maryland and the
Maryland's not making the Final Four.
that.
What are you talking
What?
about?
Oh, what?
Are
we
you
serious?
insane?
They are fifth in goal scoring in the Big Ten.
They're at best the third best team in the conference. There's no way Maryland makes the Final Four.
Mr. Preisman, we need to have a talk here. My friend, your Maryland Terrapins are not only in the Final Four, but your Maryland Terrapins have dominated their bracket of the regional. This is Winning the Draw, a Northwestern lacrosse podcast. My name is Matt Campbell, and you're listening to WNUR Sports, your home for Northwestern athletics.
She sets fires, and she will send Northwestern.
No longer flying solo here in Evanston. I'm Matt Campbell alongside Ben Dannemiller. Welcome into another episode of Winning the Draw. Off to the Final Four we go. A storybook season for a storybook team. Coming off a storybook ending to a storybook contest in the NCAA quarterfinals for the right to claim a second national championship since the turn of the decade on home turf. Ben, we have a lot to catch up on because you haven't been here for a while. You're actually on the first episode of the Campbell Aiden Weiss era. So glad to have you back, first of all.
Glad to be back. It's fun.
Second of all, we got to give you a quick rundown of what's going on in the tournament because you haven't joined Winning the Draw since the tournament started. Actually, last time we checked, you were on the episode where Brendan Preisman was like, Maryland's not making the Final Four.
That was a bold take.
Mr. Preisman, come. Mr. Preisman, we need to have a talk here. My friend, your Maryland Terrapins are not only in the Final Four, but your Maryland Terrapins have dominated their bracket of the regional.
Okay. No.
They have.
No.
They really have.
They beat Rutgers by 3. That's not dominance.
That game was much more Maryland than
No,
you
I
thought
know,
it
but
was.
still. Like you look at, what Johns Hopkins has done in their bracket, right? Like the 2 games that they were supposed to put away, they put away.
I guess. All right, by any rate, Mr. Dannemiller, the top 4 seeds in the NCAA tournament, what do you know? End up being the Final Four. Northwestern, North Carolina, Maryland, Johns Hopkins. How did we get here, you ask? Well, I mean, you know how Northwestern got here. Thrashing Johns Hopkins on Mother's Day. And then we'll get into this contest in a second.
James Madison?
Johns Hopkins, James Madison. Oh, my gosh. I find a way to mix up the two. And it's because I'm thinking Matty Epke and James Madison. James Madison, Johns Hopkins, both start with J's.
Yeah, I suppose.
So I've been doing that since the Johns Hopkins game that I was on the call for as Calvin. So that's been...
It's rough.
It's rough.
Yeah. No, it happens, though.
Then a 2 overtime thriller in which the Cats barely outlasted the Buffaloes and exercised some early season demons to get to the Final Four. What else has been going on? Johns Hopkins ran the table, absolutely smoked Albany, absolutely smoked Army, and then
Buzzer beater finish.
Against Stony Brook.
Down a goal with a minute to go, and they win in regulation.
That was insane.
And we thought that would be the most insane finish of the round, and then it wasn't.
It wasn't. We had 2 overtime finishes, back-to-back games, last Thursday. Well, 2 last-second finishes. Should I say.
Yeah.
That game and then the Northwestern game. Maryland, we just talked about. Proved Brendan Preisman wrong.
Yeah.
North Carolina was North Carolina. Now, when you look at this Colorado game, I want to pitch this to you real quick, and I want to bounce this off you. I want to see what you think. A lot of Northwestern's postseason success in close games has been due to Jenica Cuoco and her excellent play in between the pipes. Against Colorado, she had a .333 save percentage.
Mm-hmm.
Her lowest since, I want you to take a crack at this, and then I'll tell you.
The first Colorado game.
No, her lowest since the Ohio State upset.
That makes more sense, yeah. I suppose.
How does this make you feel as a fan, as a journalist, as a WNUR station member, that this Northwestern team can find a way to win, even if Jenica Cuoco has a bad game? What does that say about them?
I mean, it makes me feel really good, from the perspective of a Northwestern fan. Like if you're going in, if you're looking at the stats, obviously a couple of the stats from the Colorado game is going to stick out to you. That's one of them. The other one is the turnover margin and the draw control margin. The Cats absolutely dominated the draw control, but because they kept turning the ball over to this Colorado defense, it ended up being pretty even. In terms of goals scored, obviously had to go to 2 overtimes. So I think that the fact that Northwestern was able to not only, win a game win a close game in the postseason without Jenica Cuoco having an incredible day, and like her save percentage in that one is going to be a little bit deflated just because she had to make some incredible saves on the ones that she did stop. But I think that for the Cats to kind of exercise their, turnover demons from the first game and like battle through that, because Colorado is the best defense in Division I.
Mm-hmm.
For the Cats to be able to battle through that and like still come out on top, I think should make any Northwestern fan feel really confident.
Here's my take on it, and you were right about the turnovers. 19 turnovers, that's Northwestern's most since the Rutgers game on the lakefront, which didn't really matter, 22 and an 18-6 win at Martin Stadium.
That was just a sloppy game.
That was just a sloppy game,
Yeah.
but because it's Rutgers, like you can get away with it.
Mm-hmm.
But against the Colorado, Northwestern obviously couldn't get away with it. Here's my perspective on it, though. This team, as opposed from last season, is so much more in terms of goal scoring than Madison Taylor.
Yeah.
And that has been the thing that the black box that we've been preaching about for WNUR all season. And when Olivia Adamson went down with a knee injury a couple of weeks ago, we were a little bit afraid, not as journalists, but as fans, that this would have to be the Madison Taylor show again. And Northwestern proved that not to be the case because Taylor LaPointe stepped up. And this is an incredible story. Like when me and Adam Sutra went to Ann Arbor for the Big Ten tournament, we talked to her and she talked about how Madison Taylor's her best friend and they're like super, super close in the connection that they have with each other. How much she values the connection that they have with each other. And it seems as though like she's taken after her best friend so nicely. 5 points in that Colorado game. That's an NCAA tournament career high for her. And if you want a definition of what consistent growth looks like over the years, that's Taylor LaPointe from her freshman year, coming off the bench, last year being one of the first attackers off the bench, if she was even on the bench, because half the time she was starting, to this year being a consistent part of the starting lineup and finding her way into clutch moments time and time again. Did it in a Big Ten tournament against Michigan. Earlier in the year, did it against Stony Brook, and then when Northwestern needed it against the zone defense of Colorado, because it's still something that Northwestern needs to figure out and hash out, she came through, and she got the job done when Northwestern needed her to do the job. And so, in a game where Aditi Foster only scores 1 goal, Kate Ratana-Pruksa only scores 1 goal, Maddie Epke only scores 2 goals, for Taylor LaPointe to step up and be that number 2 option, in my opinion, just shows the versatility of this team and the depth of this team, which I don't think many people in the country are talking about right now.
No, not at all. I mean, especially coming out of last year, the outlook for this team in 2026 was very much the Madison Taylor show, and you kind of can understand that, a record-breaking performance from her last year, but it is just, as you mentioned, fantastic to see all of these players contributing at such a high level and really being a major team affair now, not only with the goal scoring, but also, there's so many stars in the defensive and midfield now. Madison Smith coming up with the 2 clutch overtime draws in the Colorado game that I think it's much harder for an opposing team to game plan for Northwestern now because it's not shut down Madison Taylor and the goals will stop coming. It's now you have to shut down Taylor and LaPointe and
Ratanapruxa
to a lesser degree, but still for a first year, still a very solid goal scoring output from her. So I think, you kind of hit the nail on the head here. It's just great to see all of the love get shared, I suppose, on the offense.
And I think what that does is that it allows Taylor to explore other aspects of the game that we didn't get to see as much last year because so much of the goal-scoring load had been on her. And I've been saying this all season, and nobody understood what I was saying. Everyone just thought that I was saying that she was a bad passer. Not what I was saying at all. Not by any means. I always knew the talent was there. It was just that she couldn't show it because she always had to be the one scoring goals. Like, you don't set a single season NCAA Division I record in goal scoring without being expected to score 4 to 5 goals every single game. Now that doesn't have to be the case. Now Madison Taylor could score 2 goals and Northwestern could coast to a 3-goal victory because you have so many weapons. And what that does is that it allows her to focus on the draw circle, helping scoop up those loose ground balls in the draw circle for Northwestern, which is something that I saw in the second round matchup against James Madison that I went and said, if she can keep doing this, then Northwestern is so much better off because of how smart of a lacrosse player that she is. Not only that, turning the ball over on the defensive clear game as well to create more offensive possessions. Not even just her. That's Ratanapruxa and Noelle Cumberland and Hannah Rudolph as well. But Taylor is like a big, big part of that. Getting scrappy at certain points in the defensive zone or in the offensive zone, should I say, when Northwestern misses a shot or turns the ball over and the opposing team is trying to get their clear game going, like Northwestern is on top of it, and in large part due to Taylor. If she can continue to do a lot of that stuff without having to worry about being the number one option 60 minutes out of the game, it fares or it bodes well for the Cats, I think.
Yeah.
So we're now brought to this Final Four that is basically like a love letter to everything Northwestern lacrosse in the 2020s. Like, well, you can really say that this whole tournament has been a love letter to Northwestern lacrosse. And I talked about this last podcast, so I won't go into depth about it, but we can talk in circles about how Northwestern, rectified its early season loss 94 days after in a thriller for the ages, and got that like win that kind of felt like, or well, like not really felt like, was their biggest loss of the 21st century, if we're being serious. And then I think so. At the time, yes.
A month later, that wasn't the case.
A month later, when Colorado got ranked, sure, we gave them the benefit of the doubt. But now you're at this Final Four where, in Northwestern side of the bracket, the two top scoring offenses in the Big Ten go head-to-head once again in what is presumably going to be an all-out gunfight, an all-out shootout in Martin Stadium. If Northwestern were to get to the championship, it's going to face a team that pushed it to the brink. Maryland, twice this season. 1 goal. Well, twice this season, 3 times in the past 2 years. Games decided by 1 goal. Twice in the Big Ten championship. Probably hungry to get back at Northwestern.
100%.
Because losing a Big Ten championship on home turf, that's not something that Kathy Reese is going to stand for.
No.
Not at all.
No.
And on the other side, North Carolina, which I think is Northwestern's biggest, in the sport of lacrosse, should I say, biggest rival, all respect to Maryland, biggest rival.
I would disagree with that, but
in the sport.
It's fine.
I know. In my opinion, should I say, because I think this brewing rivalry between Chloe Humphrey and Madison Taylor, if you want to call it a rivalry, if you don't want to call it a rivalry, I'd like to call it a rivalry because I'm one of those people that love storylines in sport. It's awesome to see 2 of the best attackers in the nation going at it, going goal for goal, trying to see who can outlast the other. And Chloe Humphrey went guns ablaze in the first half in the regular season, was 5 goals, and then, for lack of a better term, ghosted in the second. While Madison Taylor kind of like rode the Northwestern train of like a balanced offense, and then when the time came, thank you to Jenica Cuoco stopping a Kylie Motai's free position in overtime. Yep. She came through in the clutch and she scored the game winner. I want your opinions on what this Final Four means for the program.
Well, I think this has been a season of kind of vanquishing demons, I think. And so I think that is kind of the big theme coming into this Final Four. Obviously, Johns Hopkins was one of the, relatively comfortable wins for Northwestern in the regular season. And so I think there's not as much of a thing there. But once you get to the final, I think there's just a lot of bad blood between whoever Northwestern ends up playing, assuming they beat Johns Hopkins, just because, Maryland, even this year, just so much like controversy in that regular season game. Several calls that went Northwestern's way that you could definitely debate.
Cough, Maddie Smith body check.
Well, that one, yeah, and the delay of game I remember
and the
as
delay
well.
game.
Like, yeah, that probably should have been called. But I think, and for Northwestern to really steal a game in the Big Ten championship after kind of giving it up in the fourth quarter. I think it's going to be about keeping the same level of consistency that Northwestern's been at ever since, Oregon, ever since traveling out to the Pacific Northwest to start their second season, right? It's been a new team since then, and I think it's all about trying to make that new team undefeated.
So we head into Friday, Northwestern's Final Four matchup against Johns Hopkins. Last time these two teams faced off in a postseason until it was last year's Big Ten tournament. What a surprise. Where Northwestern won by 1. Now, was it like a come-from-behind victory like the Big Ten tournament final that year? No. Like, Northwestern led the majority of the game. They were in the driver's seat. However comfortable or uncomfortable they felt, like the Cats were ahead in the contest. Mm-hmm. Johns Hopkins ties the game with 4 minutes to go, and then like they just run out of gas. Like they just couldn't find that goal that they needed to. Credit Delaney Schweitzer, Jane Hansen last season, young Mary Carroll stepping into some big shoes to fill, and Sammy White that locked it down in the clutch for the Cats. But this is also a team that, like I said, leads the Big Ten in scoring offense. Top 5 in the nation in scoring offense.
4 of the top 10 point scorers in the country.
Yep. And its heartbeat is Ava Angelo. Now, in Ryan Fieldhouse, and you look at the stats and you'll kind of like crank your head at me, but give me a second. In Ryan Fieldhouse, like the heartbeat of this team, to preface what I'm about to say, is Ava Angelo. Like this, like if Ava Angelo scores, if Ava Angelo gets hers, Johns Hopkins wins. That's the pattern. Ava Angelo did not get hers inside Ryan Fieldhouse until the fourth quarter, but it was too little too late. I just don't see a world where Northwestern is able to do that again. All respect to this year's Northwestern defense. That's not a knock on them. I just have a lot of respect for Angelo. I think she's the second best attacker in the Big Ten. And I don't think that you're going to keep an attacker like Angelo down 2 consecutive games unless you have some secret sauce recipe for defense that just cannot be broken. But Colorado just proved that wrong just a couple days ago. Does this game hinge on Northwestern just shooting the lights out and outpacing Johns Hopkins, or do you think it's a game where Jenica Cuoco has to bounce back and go back to being a Jenica Cuoco in a cage?
I think Cuoco, it's going to have to be a bounce back game for her, mainly because I think, you have this incredibly formidable Johns Hopkins attack, not just with Angelo, but also Lacey Downey, Taylor Haas.
Taylor Haas is one of the best facilitators in the entire country.
Exactly, right? Like 10th in the country in points. And so I think what it's going to have to be for the Cats is can you find a way to close out a game? Because that's been probably the biggest struggle of the second half of the season is closing out games. I mean, you see it obviously, in the Colorado game, the second one, giving up a goal in the final seconds to send it to overtime, and that was just a really nervy experience. You see it with the Penn State game away, the Cats where the game was over, Jenica Cuoco got pulled, and then a quick 3 goals from Penn State. Cuoco had to come back in to make sure.
Francesca Argentieri got thrown to the wolves there, for lack of a better term, coming off the bench cold against
True, 100%,
really good
but
Penn State offense.
Still.
I guess, yes.
But there's still something to be said about the defense not really kind of coasting from that point. And then you have, the biggest example for definitely the Maryland Big Ten championship game where the Cats are up big and then let Maryland send it to overtime again. I think it is going to mainly not only rest on Jenica Cuoco, but also this defense to get the job done, is what I would say heading into the semi.
Yeah, I think I'll agree with you on that. I think the defense has to close out the game down the stretch. Because Johns Hopkins, if you give them opportunities, they will cash in. They've proven that this season that they are one of the most efficient teams in the entire country. Right up there with the Northwestern and the UNC in terms of offensive efficiency. And nobody really talks about it because, the Big Ten is always Northwestern, Maryland, and then Johns Hopkins. You're cool, but I mean, you're not in that tier. And I feel like that is kind of the sentiment that the Blue Jays are heading to Chicago with. They lost to Northwestern in the regular season, despite playing one of their best games of the entire season.
Mm-hmm.
And you walk away feeling underrated, but not underrated in a positive way, underrated in more so an overlooked kind of way. That irks you.
Yeah.
And that irks.
I've seen a lot of people talking about this, Northwestern versus the winner of North Carolina, Maryland, and that's absolutely not the case. Johns Hopkins.
It's not the case at all.
Incredible team.
That is not the case at all.
Yeah.
If Johns Hopkins catches fire, it could spell disaster for Northwestern.
And we've seen that in the tournament. They put 21 past Army. That is not. Army's not, of course, on the same tier, but it's a very strong team. You see it. They come into Ryan Fieldhouse and perhaps not the closest of games, but Northwestern still doesn't really get anything they want against them. So to see Johns Hopkins, 21 and score 21 in the first 2 rounds, right? They're certainly out for blood.
Now, jumping across the bracket to the other side of the tournament, UNC Maryland meeting for the first time since 2020, early February 22nd that year. UNC killed the Terps 19-6 on home turf. If that, for context, it was at Dorrance Field, and the Tar Heels are absolutely dominant at Dorrance Field. They had if I remember correctly, a 2-year unbeaten streak at home that Northwestern
broke it. Yeah,
before Northwestern broke it.
Yeah,
sandwiched in between Northwestern trips to North Carolina. Which might be poetic in and of itself that UNC has a chance to play Northwestern for a national championship on Northwestern's home turf after. Yeah. But let's not look past it. I hate to I'm not going to put you on the spot immediately, but I want your thoughts. But I'm going to give my thoughts so you can gather your thoughts a little bit. I'm interested to see UNC is the most well-rounded team in the entire country. I don't think there's any debate about it. I just think Maryland's clutch, man. J.J. Suriano is the best goalkeeper in the nation right now. And so that's a test that I'm very excited to see. If Chloe Humphrey can overcome a goalkeeper like J.J. Suriano, I think that just solidifies her spot as the future of this sport. She's only a sophomore, and she's the front runner for the Tewaaraton Award for the second straight year, which is insane to think about. Only as a freshman, as a sophomore, being the first freshman in history to win that honor, and then going to win the Honda Sport Award. But when you have a Lauren LaPointe, a Corey Edmondson, and a Keely Block, you gotta like your chances if you're Kathy Reese going up against UNC, right? Like, those are the most 3 clutch players in the entire nation.
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's a game where I think, you mentioned with, the Northwestern Johns Hopkins game that it might turn into the Cats trying to shut down Ava Angelo if that's like the entire game. I think you almost could see something similar here with Maryland if they can shut down Chloe Humphrey. Do they just win? And I almost think the answer is yes. Like, as I mentioned earlier, Johns Hopkins is a team that has a ton of like depth in the goal scoring, but I'm looking at like the NCAA, the scoring charts, and it really is Chloe Humphrey and then a massive drop off to Addison Patillo in second, right?
Yeah.
So I think that for Maryland, I think it's a very simple game plan, and so I think their coaching staff will be happy to see that, like, at least on the defensive side of things, they know what they need to do. But yeah, I think it's a game that I think it'll be the better semifinal.
All right, well, there you have it. Those are your 2 previews, ladies and gentlemen. So that brings us to the end of the show. Give me your Final Four prediction.
Final Four prediction. I have Northwestern versus Maryland. Sorry, I have Northwestern UNC in the final. UNC is just far more hot in the postseason. I would have...
That is very true.
I have Northwestern over UNC in the final, so a chalk Final Four. But
I'm going with the chalk Final Four as well. Like, I just think that's got to be the story, right? Like, I'm not... Yeah. It's got to be,
I mean, I think
based
it would
on
be a
the
better
season,
story if it was Maryland.
Based on the season of Northwestern has had, if you think that, like, the theme this year is Northwestern vanquishing demons, then the ultimate demon that Madison Taylor needs to vanquish is North Carolina.
Yeah. Because
guess what happened in the national championship last year against North Carolina?
I listened to it at 4 a.m.
Skunk.
Yeah.
Like, that has to be it. And I 110% agree with you, and I'm riding the train. I've been riding the train since, like, Northwestern's start of a new season after, going on the road to Oregon, putting up 17. Mm-hmm. I'm like, this is a time for the Cats to finally start climbing back up the totem pole and redeeming themselves.
Yeah, and to do it at home in front of an actual crowd outside.
To do it at home in front of an actual crowd to prove that they're the best offense in the Big Ten against the number 1 scoring offense in the Big Ten, and then going to the national championship to beat who the coaches think, not the NCAA committee, but who the coaches think is the number 1 team in the country.
And who I think is the number 1 team.
Who you think is the number 1 team in the country.
Yes, did Northwestern beat UNC?
Who you saw should have had the number 1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament.
Yes.
But I told you the NCAA values RPI and values head-to-head.
I never believed that UNC was going to be the number 1 seed. I said that they should be.
They should.
Because they have had the better body of work over the course of a season. Northwestern lost to a team that's not in the tournament.
I guess so. But at the end of the day, Northwestern's hot streak.
Yeah. I mean, regardless,
Northwestern's
we're here
hot
now,
streak
right?
Cannot be overlooked through the NCAA committee. And they've proven them right. They've proven them right so far.
100% they have. But I'm just saying that heading into the national tournament, that's the selection that I would have made.
So are we both saying that Northwestern gets the job done?
Yes, I think so. I think that, there's a lot of emotion behind this one being the first ever. Is it the westernmost lacrosse Final Four ever?
First ever lacrosse Final Four in the Midwest in general. Like, it's always been on the East Coast.
Yeah, so
it has never been in the Midwest.
Northwestern,
it's outside the Eastern time zone for the first time ever.
In it to prove that this is also a Midwest sport now, and I think you saw it. I mean, how good the Boulder Regional was too. I think this is a tournament with a lot more Western flavor.
I agree. Yeah. When you have the Colorado and Denver both had great seasons.
Why did they put those two in the same? Well, that was the region of death. Like, why would they put that?
I don't know.
Like,
that was
Colorado, the team they beat in the Big 12 final, and Denver. So the top 2 defenses in the country.
And Florida in there. Oh man.
And then Jacksonville, who for all things like is one of the better.
Jacksonville took Colorado to the brink.
Exactly, right? Like that.
Jacksonville played Colorado as good as
Yeah.
any other team played Colorado,
Jacksonville
including
was
Northwestern. And it's just like, for whatever reason, they just couldn't get the job done at the last second.
Like Jacksonville was the only team in that in the Northwestern quarter to be above the tournament median in both scoring offense and scoring defense. And they were put as like a 4 seed. Like, obviously, that's because they played a much weaker schedule. But, like, you can see it out on the field. They barely lost to one of the best defensive teams ever.
Yeah, they had their worst 5 minutes at the worst possible time. And the last 5 minutes of the game, when they actually needed a goal, didn't come.
Yeah.
But that is the parody of sport.
That is the parody. That's why you play the game?
I'm interested to see what the parody of sport will be on the lakefront. This
Yes.
home field advantage.
Is it supposed to rain?
Good question.
I feel like I feel like I saw that it's supposed to rain on Friday at least, which would make me a little more
I'm
nervous.
seeing precipitation on Saturday and Sunday.
It says for me raining Friday like late night, so no.
I guess not.
So it might be
light rain on Sunday,
a wet field on
which would
Sunday,
be interesting because when you think about it, like Northwestern's a team that plays indoors for most of the season, so think about moving outdoors.
They've been
and
outside
weathering
for
the
long
elements.
enough now because like they also play all their away games on the road. Like it's
That is true. I mean, also something I like to think about. Okay, Final Four predictions. We're saying Northwestern's going all the way on home turf.
Yeah.
We'll see and reconvene next week. That's not the saying. I thought I could like switch up the saying and go. So I'm gonna we're gonna revert. Will Northwestern get the job done? Will Northwestern win title number 9? It's title number 9, right? Title number 9
sounds
on
right.
the lakefront. Well, we shall see and reconvene next week. This has been Winning the Draw. Matt Campbell, Ben Dannemiller, thank you for joining me this
My
evening.
pleasure.
Thank you, folks at home, for tuning in. We're pulling for the Cats in the Final Four. As always, go Cats, and we'll see you next week. This has been Winning the Draw, brought to you by your host, Matt Campbell. If you've been watching on YouTube, be sure to hit that subscribe button to be notified of all of our future episodes and our other content, like the Sunday Sports Blog. If you've been listening on Spotify, tap the follow button at the top of our page to add this show to your library. It's been a pleasure being with you today. Thank you for tuning in. And as always, go Cats. See you next time.